Hey, this is Dr. Paul Dyer. Welcome to Bridges Live, another great show. I'd like to thank all my sponsors and listeners, and contact me through Bridges Live. And this, of course, you can always get me on drpaulholisticscience.com, or you can email me through drpaulwdyer@gmail.com. But enough about me, because, if you listen to Bridges Live, you know where to find me. But here, I like to always bring a content of a show to you about information. You know that. It's about understanding. You know that. And it's about action. And we've been touching on a lot of sensitive things throughout the year. And sometimes we need to learn how to take action. And I know that when many people start organizations, they're missing a step. They miss economic steps. They miss a social step. They miss an emotional step to that. They miss a physical practice to it. There's a lot of things, and we've been bringing some content to it. And Mr. Rodney Walker, I have on Bridges Live. Rodney, welcome to Bridges Live.
Hey, so glad to be here on today. Thank you for having me.
So give a little bit of backdrop of what you do, Rodney, and then we'll go right into the show from there.
Okay, I'd be happy to. Well, the long and short of it is I help organizations and individuals who are seeking to get funded, especially as it relates to securing grant funding, to know how to do this at a very high level so that they can expedite opportunities that exist to help them to get funded for their charitable causes. That can be nonprofits that are doing charitable good.
Hold on. Rodney,
services.
Are you talking about free
Yes.
money? Now, see, that woke somebody up. Free money.
If I had to say, a lot of people have the perception that it's free money. but what I often tell them is that it's far from being free money. It's actually investment money. And there are people that are in organizations that are willing to invest to bring about certain things that can actually help to bring greater good into our community. So it's really investment money versus free money.
And I know I did that comically, and it's in jest, because I understand so many times when people talk about, so you're asking, and I said, no, it's not that. And for me, not being one of those grant people, and I write books and I write positive books, but grant writing is a whole other level. That's a whole other stratosphere of writing. And so let me ask something specific. Why is grant writing such a different ask letter than asking my girlfriend or wife out on a date?
Well, it's a good question. The long and short of it is this. When you're asking for grant funding, you have people on the other end that have a lot of people asking them for funds. And unlike your girlfriend or someone that maybe already knows you, you already have a history with them. And these organizations are going to really be kicking the tires to see, hey, how legit are you? Do you have certain things in place, like your 501c3 status? Are you legitimately recognized by the government as a nonprofit organization?
You mean someone's got to recognize me first before I can ask for money?
Well, you can ask for money all you want. You may not get the money if you don't have these things in place.
Now, it seems
they're going to kick the tires.
It seems funny that we can laugh, and I'm glad, but the sad issue is that these things are not taught.
Yeah, so true. So true. And the information, the beautiful thing is now the information is so readily accessible. But what I've seen a lot of times is that nonprofits just don't know what to do, and they don't take the time to really go and learn what they need to do to be able to position themselves to get these funds.
Now, Rodney, is it so there, because, there aren't many places, even in a community, not only that offers grant writing education, but most people are looking for grant writers to do it for them.
Yeah, and in some cases that works out well for organizations to have somebody come along and write a grant for them. But a lot of newer nonprofit organizations that are just starting out and that don't have as much of a track record yet, sometimes those finances become they're really tight. Especially when you're starting out, you're trying to make some bricks out of straws. And with that being the case, sometimes it's often better to allow yourself to go through the learning process so that you at least know what it's supposed to look like, what the grant writer is supposed to be doing, so that you can write those grants. Because, depending on what grant you're writing, that can be easily $3,000 or $4,000. And if it's a government grant, it could be much more. So it sometimes can be a wiser investment to learn how to fish for yourself instead of simply having someone else do the fishing for you. Because every time you get ready to have them go fishing, and they're going to charge you.
Now, when someone doesn't know, if you don't know how to write a grant and you've never read a grant, how do you know what a good grant is supposed to look like? Or is there such thing as a good grant, just a well-written grant? Or they're not the same? They're not synonymous, are they?
Yeah, I would say a good grant, the bottom line is, for me, a good grant is a grant that gets the money. Okay?
But you won't know that for months.
That's at the end of the day, At the end of the day, do you get the money, okay? So the grant could be a poorly written grant. But if you get the money, in my mind, I kind of think that's kind of a pretty good grant. But here's the real truth of the matter. Funders want to see that you have a well thought out game plan for what you're trying to do. And it's just like the word says. It's a proposal. It's almost like a marriage proposal.
Yes.
Like, hey, I propose to you, and if you can show the funder, hey, what you're planning on doing in an intelligent way where it makes sense and that you have the proper systems in place to really carry that out, then they may entrust you with those funds. So a part of what the challenge is thinking through it well and thinking through what you actually want to do. Because what happens oftentimes, I find a lot of people come and say, hey, I want a grant. I say, okay, great. Are you grant ready? Yes, I'm ready. They're like, yeah, I'm ready to get the grant. But no. Do you have all these other things in place to be able to position yourself to get the funds? And that's what's often lacking.
So, welcome to Bridges Live. Let you know, you're listening to Dr. Paul on Bridges Live. I'm talking to Mr. Rodney Walker. Rodney Walker started an organization. It's a grant writing organization. Is that correct?
Yes, we are a firm that helps organizations learn how to get funded.
So some of those things we're talking about is grant ready. What is some of the things that you would have to say? Like, is there a litany of things to be grant ready, or is there pretty much 5 key things, 10 things? Like, what's the short list?
Okay, the short list would be this. Most grants are given out to charitable nonprofit organizations. So if your organization is a for-profit business, the likelihood of you getting funded is very slim. So first, you need to be a 501c3. And by a 501c3, I'm simply saying you need to be recognized as a charitable organization by the government. They are the one who issues out that status, okay? So if you don't have that, then the likelihood of getting grants is very, 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 very slim. Now, the people who give out the money can give out the money to whoever they want to give out to. However, they're more likely to give it out to someone who has a 501c3 status because they're required to give it out to those organizations to meet their fulfillment as a foundation. So that's the first thing, okay? Second thing is, do you have a history? What is your history? Because a lot of times people say, hey, give me some money. And they say, okay, great, what are you going to do? Well, we haven't done anything yet, but if you give us some money, we're going to do some stuff. It don't work like that. People want to see where have you come from? What have you done? And they want to see that track record. So if your organization is brand new, you best be volunteering and connecting with other organizations and agencies to start building some type of history. So that's the second thing. And then, thirdly, I would say real quickly, organizations need to make sure that they have the proper structure. And think about it from the standpoint that the nonprofit, the people who are giving out the money, they want to know that the money that they're going to be investing is going to be well managed, which means that you're going to have a board and that you have people that govern that organization and that they govern it well. And so they're going to be looking, hey, who's on the board?
Well, you know,
they want to see some of those things.
We can't have Joe Biden's son on our board and pay him $50,000 a month, but we can, so when people look at board members, I think the question is who should be on the board, or how would you look at a good board member?
Well, from a grant funding standpoint,
yes.
they're looking at just like how well is the organization being ran?
Gotcha.
Do you have the proper people in place that can look at it and make sure that hopefully that's being ran in a prudent way? So what makes a good board member, we can go into we could do a whole training on that alone. But
wow.
In terms of like from the vantage point of what the funder is going to be looking for is, do you have these proper systems in place? For instance, do you have a CPA or an accountant or someone who can make sure the money is being handled correctly? Do you have somebody like that on your board? Do you have somebody who understands the legal aspect?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be something important. Do you have someone that maybe is with banking or that has, because all of those fields have like credentialing that becomes very important, and it kind of helps to ease the funders. Okay, great. Hey, they have these systems in place, so a person knows how to run an organization. They know how to run a business. It's not, it's not five family members, twiddling their thumbs.
I was gonna say, so Uncle Goober, because he's got a truck, is not on the board.
That's a good one.
So these are some of the great things I know. It's limited to how people speak about grants, grant funding, and access to grants, because people of color and the different underprivileged communities know the need of what they can do for the community, but they don't have access. And we've always talked about in different communities, it's always about education's about access. Hopefully Bridges Live is an access. So this is another information about getting access. But if we don't have the proper tools, access is it's not that it's denied, it's never looked at. So there's a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said earlier, there's so much information out here these days that you can get information and start down that learning journey. In fact, that's what I really oftentimes encourage organizations to do. Just, hey, I get so many people that have some big dreams and big hopes and such caring people, caring hearts that want to give back to the community, and they're filled with passion, but oftentimes that passion has not met with education to learn. And I'm not saying they have to go to school and get a doctor's degree to do this. I'm talking about these people just haven't taken the time to learn the basics of what they need to do to run the organization well.
That's beautiful.
And so I'll say, hey, tap the brakes some and get a game plan. And a part of the game plan, let that game plan involve getting educated in these areas that are crucial so that what you do, you can have an even greater impact.
That is beautiful. That's beautiful. And it's very purposeful, too. It's not just about having a passion. It's not just about having a purpose, but it's about having procedure. And procedure is often looked at as education. And again, once you have a procedure, you can have access. These are some of the greatest points, Mr. Rodney Walker. Now I'm a grant writer, and I want to start helping my community write grants. What are the things I need to start working on to be a good grant writer?
Well, I would say to be a good grant writer, you have to have a good understanding of, first of all, what the purpose of these grants are for. And I would say to be a good grant writer, you want to definitely know how to do you need to be at least a decent writer. I don't say that you have to be a great writer. You just need to be a decent writer. And I oftentimes tell people, if you've been able to go and get through college and do some 8 or 10 page papers, you can do a grant, because a part of what it involves the same elements. Research. Do you know how to research? Okay. And a lot of this research is done online. And if you know how to research and you know how to write decent and tell an organization's story, is going to be really important. Really kind of unearthing the agency's story and what they're doing and putting it into a compelling way that the funder gets it, that they see it. But to do grant writing at a high level, it's more than just writing. And I oftentimes tell people they think that it's just the writing. No, it's the research. And here's something that's oftentimes really, really overlooked in this whole process. At the end of the day, people give to people. People give to people.
Wow.
And it's not just a program. So since people are given to people, another big part of what makes a good grant writer is someone who understands how to work the relational equity in getting funded, which means that if I'm going to develop if I know that here you have this money, while you have the money, I need to be cultivating some relationships and developing some relationships with you and the people who are giving out the money. And if you learn how to become really strategic in doing that, then that helps to open up other doors. Sometimes I tell people, and they're often surprised at this, but sometimes a grant has been decided before one word has been written down on paper. And that's because of the relational equity that's been developed, and the paper is just perfunctory.
Uh-huh.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So this is what I'm saying.
You actually raised another question then, but finish with your thought. Finish your thought.
No. So what I'm saying is that hey, it's you ask what is a good grant writer?
Yeah.
A good grant writer has this whole big picture, and you realize that it's not just writing.
So how does a potential future grant writer in young America start relationships with different people, organizations, or people to help? So eventually, it's not like, it's not like someone's going to meet the Bush Foundation, president. So how, even though Bush Foundation puts out a lot of grants, we know that the Gates family puts out a lot of grants. We know that the Ford family, we know these are big grant funding people, but how do you develop a relationship with anyone? Because there's a lot of people who put out grants. It could be a local company to, big corporations. So where does that person start? It's almost like
That's a great question. I think the first place to start is knowing that there's going to be guests coming up to the house. And we know that there's going to be guests coming up to the house. What do? We clean up.
Yeah.
So the first thing is, hey, get the house clean. You prepare for guests to be coming over in the next few months. Because once you start applying, they're going to start looking underneath the hood to see what's going on.
Right.
And so I would say first place is start there. The second thing I would also say is you can be really strategic. Look at the organization. The organization's information is on the web. What are they giving money to right now? Are there any other organizations that are out there that they're giving monies to that are similar to yours? Now, I tell people, hey, you may want to, before you just start trying to go out and apply right away, the big name of the game is doing the homework first. So that when you launch out, you're ready to launch out strategically and really very targeted. But if you just start applying, no, you got to be more savvy than that. So I would say, hey, get your house right, do the homework, and after you've done the homework, then a part of that homework is going to entail looking at that organization, seeing who's on the board. Does your board members do any of your board members have any connections with these people? And it's not with social media these days. It's not too hard to reach out and start connecting with people and start strategically getting yourself on their radars.
Now, I don't know how seasoned you are, but being this is radio and podcasts, and people may know how old I am in my 50s with all my kids and grandkids, but Common Core does not allow people to do homework anymore, so we're out of luck, Rodney, with people doing homework and research.
my thing is, hey, listen, if you're out of luck and you feel like you're really out of luck, either one or two things. We either got to change the mindset or do not apply.
Gotcha.
Okay? Because this game is for those who are willing to roll up their sleeves, put their big girl and big boy britches on to learn what they got to do to get funded. And other than that, I say, hey, listen, you're going to be sent home with your lips poked out and homeless. Okay? And if you don't want to do that, then you got to learn how to play by the rules of the game.
Now, as a company or organization or a person who's got the good heart and goodwill, finds a grant writer, they write the grant, what could a person looking at the potential grant that someone written for them, what some of the key points should they look at to make sure that it's adequate for them? It's really going back. It's going back to the same thing. Is it doing the homework again?
Absolutely. In fact, I got a video. It's on YouTube. You just go to like how to choose a grant writer, Rodney Walker.
Okay.
And there's a video where I kind of give an explanation in detail of it. I'll give you a short answer right now. You want to do your due diligence the same way you would do if you were an employer getting ready to hire an employee. You want to check references. You want to check to see what the success rate has been, and ideally see if they written grants in the area of what you are seeking funding for. Now, any good grant writer worth their weight in gold, they're going to level with you and be honest with you and let you know if they feel like they can actually help to get you funded. But again, you want to do the homework. You want to check references. You want to see what they've done, and you want to see who are they associated with. You know, are they connected with other grant writers? How long have they been doing this? And ask some of those good questions to make sure that you're not getting yourself in a losing situation, because you don't want to just go to someone who says, "Oh yeah, I can write a grant for you," and shell out a lot of money when your organization's not even ready.
So tell us about your company. Where can someone start looking? Because the local community college, the areas of schools may have offer some people there who do grant writing, but where's a place to look? It's like, I know how to pick my mangoes, but I may not know how to even go find my grant writers.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different places you can go to learn grant writing and to choose grant writing, choose grant writers. First, I would say you can do. There are different associations, so that's a good place to consider starting. You can look at different associations where you can go online and say, "Hey, Grant, I'm looking for a grant writer." If you absolutely positively want to see a grant writer, maybe one that's in your own backyard, you can just do a Google search with grant writers in whatever city or whatever state you're in. That's a possible way as well. But in terms of it, LinkedIn is also a very valuable place to be able to go and connect with potential grant writers. On LinkedIn, I have a LinkedIn group called Grant Writers Association. There, 14,000 some odd members plus in there. There are a number of grant writers in there. And those are just a few places that you can take a look at to find some potential grant writers.
Thank you so much, Rodney, we're talking to Miss Rodney Walker, and you listen to Bridges Live, of course. You can catch us on iHeart and iTunes Radio, and you can catch the podcast also. It's also going to be pushed out on YouTube. Before we end up parting, I want to say thank you so much, because I like to thank all my listeners a lot, but I like to thank my guests that come on, that takes their time to give their passion and purpose and procedure to get the information, understanding, so people can get into an action. So again, I want to say it's a God blessing that you are able to come on and visit with me and Bridges Live members and customers.
Thank you.
To give us this information, because I understand it's also about access. People don't have access to the information, and it seems like the internet is wide, as the World Wide Web it is, we get lost in it, and we find ourselves only looking at Instagram pictures instead of doing so.
It's by choice. It's by choice.
So I'd like to say thank you.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure being with you, and thank you for having me on today. And I'm looking forward to hopefully some of the few seeds that I've been able to sow today, that those will grow and somebody will take the educational piece by the horn, or go and find a good grant writer and go do some more good. The world needs what you have. So thank you for what you do to help encourage people. And keep up the great work that you're doing.
What's some of the information, before we hang up and cut this, where can they reach you if they need to ask you a question, Rodney? Did they try to find you on LinkedIn, or can they go to the website? What can they do?
There are a number of different places. You can go to Grant Central USA. That's Grant, GRANT, CentralUSA.com. Also, you can go to YouTube. I have a channel there that has a lot of resources. In fact, a lot of free resources to help people that are just starting out. So you go to youtube.com/Get Funded with Rodney. Or you can meet me on LinkedIn and that's another great place. I'm very active there at Rodney. Go to LinkedIn LinkedIn.com/Rodney Walker 180.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Thank you, Rodney. God bless, and God bless your family and everything you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. Have a good one.